If anybody else wants to record, I don't know whether it's possible, but feel free. I look at all your eager faces, waiting for pearls of wisdom to drop from my lips. You know, the most difficult concept to learn in spirituality, and which takes so long to learn, is that we live in a world of illusion. And by that, I mean we live in our heads, filled with ideas that we've been learning ever since we were 3 about who and what we are. Mathematics, science, economics, American government, world history, how to buy and sell stocks, how to invest, trying to figure out what we want to do in life, what our mission is, so to speak, what we feel comfortable with. It's all mental. And then you get into spirituality. And the biggest problem there is we begin exploring things that are called truth, which again are whole new levels of concepts about the nature of reality, so to speak, the nature of our own perceptions. And we start seeking things like the self or God, self-realization. We learn all kinds of terms: transcendence, going beyond the mind, going before the mind, going between the mind. And the number of concepts increases. And it's almost impossible to escape from these ideas. Even those who have provisionally escaped from most of them really still have so many opinions. We live in our opinions. We try to become self-realized without knowing what the self is. We read books about the self. We read Nisargadatta that talks about transcending humanity, transcending existence, the absolute. I get one guy that keeps writing me about the nature of the absolute. That's all he thinks about. He writes me twice a week about his changing concepts of what he thinks I'm saying. He doesn't have a clue because he's stuck in concepts. It's so very hard to get out of concepts. And how would one go about freeing oneself from concepts? Well, one way, and a way that Robert often suggested, was to question everything, ponder the basic concepts of what self is, what humanity is, what we're looking for, what we want. And other people like Sansaning would just say, become dumb as a rock, stop thinking. And he had a system of koans where you respond to all questions that people ask you with a series of ritualized responses to show to the other your contempt of logic and meaning. But it's so hard to know nothing. We are filled with knowledge. Christianity, Buddhism, Mohammedanism, liberalism, conservatism, democratic concepts, Republican concepts, communist concepts, right-wing concepts. And we fight and die over these things. And everybody is trying to enlist us into their belief system. Is there anything you know for sure? Do you have even one concept that you're absolutely certain about? Even that 2 + 2 = 4 is based on a whole bunch of assumptions called number theory. And it's kind of hard to practice meditation until you feel like your brain has frozen and you don't have any thoughts in your head anymore. But it's much more difficult to take concepts apart and see that they have no real world basis, that there are understanding added onto our experience of the world. Direct perception of the world without ideas is very hard to do. But I'll tell you, self-realization has to do with living outside of all the conceptual systems which have trapped you since you were 3 years old. It's to function without concepts, without meaning, without history, without a projected future. To be able to rest in yourself with no mind. And our minds will fight to maintain dominance as the horseman of our cart of a life that follows our mind. The mind is a wonderful thing to lose. You feel so good when you don't have to worry about the mind anymore. You don't have to seek bullshit to add on to your incredible load of bullshit already. To live in the universe without the protection of mind. It's not that you see a different world than those who have minds. The appearances are the same for the self-realized as opposed to those who are not. It's just that the self-realized person appears to be very simple-minded, like a child at times. No need to learn or to manipulate anything. To have no ideas. To be empty-handed walking into any life situation. How do you get to a place where you live in no mind? Yeah, I think the first thing you have to do is at the beginning of your journey is to question everything. Question every idea you have. Question your goals. Question your knowledge about yourself. I know that once I got into college, that they were throwing bullshit after bullshit at me. Much of the time I was a major in physics. A lot of time I was a major in economics. And a lot of time I was a major in philosophy. Nothing but concepts, Newtonian concepts, Einsteinian concepts. And in economics, we had different schools of thought about how economy works and how to solve the problems of economy. I was a Keynesian after the theories invented by John Maynard Keynes in the 1920s. And then the money theorists came along, like Friedman, and added their thoughts. And today, these battles still go on between Keynesians, neo-Keynesians, monetarists, laissez-faire capitalists, communists. And people have fought and died over these concepts as to who's right and who's wrong. Some concepts give people a great deal of satisfaction because they explain, or they have ideas that explain something to them which is important. Like Christianity and holding up of Jesus as the truth and the light. It's a very simplistic belief system. And you can yell and scream at all the others who don't believe in Jesus. Then there are the Buddhists who learn about the Fourfold Noble Truth and all these other concepts about emptiness and nothingness, the void. The non-existence of time. Or Einstein's notion of time as a fourth dimension. And that reality is really a four-dimensional solid of a sort with three sides of space and one side of time. But I'll tell you, you feel much relief once you cast off all of these ideas and just live immersed in your own self. I was with Muktananda in the late 70s and the early 80s. Muktananda died in 80 or 81 or 82. I forgot. But he was in Los Angeles area for 6 months in 1980. And I heard over and over again from him and his swamis, worship your own self, love yourself, worship yourself. And it just kept raising the question to me, I don't know what a self is. I had no experience related to worshiping myself or being myself. I couldn't find a self. Well, you can never find a self by looking, nor is it an object. It's not a concept to be understood. It's not an object to be felt, like an emotion, like love or anger or fear. And it's a mystery as to how you find yourself. How would you find yourself? If somebody asks you, what is yourself? What would you answer? A coordinated series of energies? What does that mean anyway? What does it feel like? I guess if I were to describe how to find the self to you, it would be something like this. Feel deeply into your chest and your gut. Feel for the spark of the life force of energies within you. And when you find them, if you find them, keep attending to them. Keep your attention on inside of you. Even though you find it impossible to look inside of you because you can't imagine how to look deeper than your skin. Use your imagination. In meditation, close your eyes and imaginatively turn your vision inwards. And with your visual sense, turn your vision inwards and then downwards into the chest and gut. Secondly, alternate this looking within to feeling within. Start feeling what it's like to have your feeling attention going inwards rather than reactively following as a result of attending to the outside world, to an authority figure, or how you react to a woman or to a man. What effect do they have on you? And instead, look inward and imaginatively look for that which looks. Imaginatively feel for the source of the feeling. You could do that with each of your senses. Hearing, where inside of you does hearing take place? Where is the hearer? Where's the smeller? Try to find the seat or the origin of where smelling takes place, or hearing, or seeing. Rather than looking outwards towards the world, look inwards towards the source, which experiences the external world. And whatever you do, stop reading. No more concepts. Once in a while, you can read Nisargadatta or Muktananda, but all of them depend much too highly on Hindu philosophy. You start talking about Shakti, Kundalini, reality, true self versus false self. And these ideas may satisfy you for a while, but in a very little while, you'll come back to that same place where you realize you don't understand anything. Deep down inside, there are no concepts that you hold as truth. You just are. And exploring just ourness seems like such a waste of time because you're not adding to your tools of knowledge and mastery over existence. To follow Sansanim in his advice to become dumb as a rock seems to go against everything you've been taught about learning more and more, deeper and deeper knowledge, more extensive and specialized knowledge, whether it's relativity or quantum mechanics or string theory or urban economics like I was studying, which is the economics of location and the laws that cover or rule over economic distributions over space. And then there is John Maynard Keynes and Keynesian economics. I encountered Keynes in my second year in college. The textbook's name was Samuelson's Economics. It was, I considered then, the most brilliant book I ever read. It thoroughly explained how capitalism works and markets work. Using mathematics and logic, it explained everything, monetary theory, and so on. But there are so many other theories that fight with Keynesianism. And the academic world is filled with such battles over ideas. And gradually, I rejected all of it, one by one. I rejected economics. I rejected philosophy. It was all a waste of time of learning concepts and theories, learning about God and reality, learning about Troy and the Hellenic Wars, learning. Everywhere, learning was extolled as the way to go. Learning was to be what we all did in order to become more competent, more thoughtful, more subtle in our dealings with the world. But in college, I began absolutely rejecting everything. They kept throwing concepts at me. And like Vesselina, after a while, I couldn't read anymore because I recognized I didn't want to do this stuff anymore. I didn't want to stuff my mind with more concepts. My mind rebelled because all of its life, it's been in learning. And I had a little learning about everything. And I realized my learning was so shallow. It was just other people's concepts. I knew nothing for myself. And as I rejected all thinking, all concepts, I felt emptiness and loneliness because I didn't have the security of knowing things anymore. And then with Robert, I had numerous experiences about the nature of consciousness, waking consciousness, sleep consciousness, dream consciousness. And his talk about the absolute or the witness, which at times he equated with consciousness, but also said that everything in the external world, including our bodies, were consciousness. But by that time, I had stopped thinking. These were like foreign ideas which didn't mean anything to me. I couldn't do anything with those ideas about the absolute, about Brahman and being one with Brahman, about there being a witness behind consciousness and before consciousness. Then I had a God realization experience. And with that, years and years of talking about Shakti, the inner energies, the life force, consciousness. And everything was getting simpler by that time and much more lively because Shakti is love. It's ever flowing. It fills you up. You feel bliss. You feel happiness. You feel joy. And you don't know anything anymore either. You just live in joy, the divine life. Yes, you still have thoughts, you still have ideas, you still have concepts, but you don't take them seriously. somewhere along there, I got the idea from my experiences of God realization that God I realized within myself as light and energy was also like me. I was made up of the same stuff, light and energy. And I more seriously investigated light and energy as myself, as well as deliberately looking for the looker, feeling for the feeler, hearing towards the source of hearing, and finding that source within me, which was like a boundary between the invisible inwardness and the outward part of becoming aware of sound, becoming aware of light and where it was taking place inside of me, becoming aware of where the feeling was going on inside of me. And always it was in the imaginary area inside my body that it was taking place. There was like a sparking of intelligence going on in there, or sentience, where I became aware. No longer thought much about things. I was more interested in feeling things inside, not outside. I was no longer so drawn to the touch of a woman, or even finding knowledge, or experiencing anything pleasurable. I was more looking for the fundamental things inside of me, where the center of my consciousness rested, and where I became aware of all my emotions, all my feelings, all my hearing and sight. And doing it without thinking about it anymore. Just feeling and looking within towards the hearer and the seer and the smeller. Where did that sentience originate inside of me? What was the center of everything for me? And it was in my heart. And by my heart, I don't mean the physical heart within, but I mean within what I call the heart of hearts. It's where, when my attention rests there, I feel most at home. Where do you feel most at home when you look within or feel within? Have you stopped thinking about who you are and what you are? Instead, feel for your source. After a long time, I was able to fill out the concepts of beingness, that Nisargadatta raised as being the life force made manifest within us as the strumming, humming of life within. And then the realization came at some point. The self was not to be learned. The self was not something to be discovered or found. That I was the self. Every moment of every day, awake or sleeping, or dreaming, I was the self. The self cannot be found. You can only be the self. And from the position of dropping into yourself and being yourself, know that you are the self. There's no need to look for it, because the looking for the self takes you away from the self into imagination, into concepts, into a practice of looking within or feeling within. But you already are the self. And if you stop searching for the self, you automatically become the self. But you will never accept it. You will never accept that simply being as the self until it's the most important thing you ever do is just being yourself. Until you see the tremendous power of not looking for something else besides yourself, not looking for a conceptual self inside, not looking for a transcendent self, not looking for an absolute, not looking for the witness of all things, but simply being and resting in your own sense of beingness, which I would call the humming or the strumming of the life force inside you or the life within you. And that's as complicated as I would explain it, because I wouldn't try to become more clever than that, because it would get me involved in the mind again, doing microanalysis of my basic nature, which is to look microscopically at various parts of myself without being able to feel the wholeness of myself at once. The wholeness of myself is there with or without thoughts. When you feel the self and you experience yourself as yourself, the mind becomes a very trivial thing. And you don't engage with the mind anymore. Only when you have to measure something to do some carpentry or to fit a dishwasher into a little space do you use your mind. Michael has a trick that he learned. It's pattern recognition through immersing himself either in weather forecasts or other data about the weather or about currency markets. His mind disappears and it's replaced by an intuition. It becomes one with the subject matter. Perhaps each of you has something that you are doing the same thing, where you feel so good about it, you don't have to think about it at all. But you have a mastery in that area, whether it's shooting a Zen arrow, playing with energies, or guessing which horse is going to win a race. After you've studied the subject for a long time, you no longer have knowledge about it. It's part of your nature, part of yourself. And then you operate in that area as yourself with absolute precision. But I see now the wisdom of martial arts as used by the Buddhists, learning how to become one with what you're doing, to integrate it into your basic nature, not as knowledge, but as a dance within you. A dance where you hold the world in your heart and it tells you what to do, what to look at, what to feel. And you begin to live in complete harmony with the world and your surrounding immediate universe. And then you can truly say, I know who I am and what I am. I am the self of all, because we all have this same self at our heart, which we find when we stop searching. But you can only stop searching when you reject further knowledge, further gain, further growth. And the strange thing is, you become humble, no longer inflated with knowledge and power and understanding, but instead, you're a simple-minded monk with a single begging bowl, going about your day, doing your chopping of wood and carrying of water. And it just feels good to fit in with that simplicity of life that you've become once you rest in your own self. No longer searching for anything or trying to penetrate deep dharmas or getting something, getting happiness, finding bliss. Because you are all of those things now, resting in yourself. Resting in yourself, you're so happy. Even the bliss gives way to just a complete peace. And the world, existence, seems to dance with you. It seems to fall together. You've become pure, so to speak, engaged purely with your world, becoming very simple-minded. And your reactions or responses to the environment are harmonious. There's no struggle in your life anymore. You relax completely, no longer fighting for anything, no longer thinking about improving yourself or society. You just live. No longer alienated from the people around you or from your own emotions or from your own concepts, because you have so few, and the few you have are usable in the moment, because everything becomes immediate. You don't have to think of an appropriate response. You just automatically do an appropriate response, because there's no longer ideas between you and your actions, no longer concepts about money, currency, earning. All of those things drop by, and you're just yourself, happily playing with your cat or cats or dogs or squirrels or the other human in your life. Relaxed and surrendered towards the world, letting it in because you're as porous as a sieve. No will of your own, no longer following any leaders, not even your own ideas. You just live as yourself in inward peace. And when you look inside your infinite depth, infinite emptiness, and it's all so inviting. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. What you have to be doing is what you are doing. There's no longer any separation. You're at peace with yourself, no longer trying to improve yourself or improve anybody else or destroy anybody else. Whatever happens is okay. It's what is in the moment. And no matter how much the pain is of losing something or someone, it feels appropriate and not to be escaped from, but to live through. Live through the loss and grief in your heart. And when you accept grief that way, sadness that way, those feelings take you very deep into yourself, into that heart of hearts. Well, I've taken you through 50 years of my spiritual struggles in 50 minutes. What I did over 50 years of striving, learning, meditation practice, going to sesshin, going to workshops and listening to teachers, and learning how to surrender and suffer the pains of losing people and cats, and dogs, and life. I hold life in such high regard now. I worship life, even the life of the smallest insect, the miracle of being alive, and the horror of losing someone that you love or something that you love. And that loss takes you even deeper into yourself. Does anyone have a question or a comment?
Hello, Edgy. I will usurp the first position. I just want to say that first of all, I'm not here to be bombastic or boastful or anything like that. So please don't take it that way. But I must say that having done the work and having achieved what I have, I think there's nothing more important than for me, nothing more important than what we're talking about here, achieving what we're talking about here. Having resting in myself is 100% what I've been looking for my whole life. It eluded me before coming here. And an analogy that I'd like to make is that before these teachings, before my awakening, it was like 5% of the real me was there. And it was all encumbered by this artificial cloak of the mundane, artificial self, which is totally without any reality. It's totally a dream. But 5% of the real me would be there. Now it's like the opposite. It's like 5% of me is the mundane self, and 95 to 100%, I'm resting in what's always been there, but which was covered up by all this elaborate machinations of the brain, of the mind, of the body mind. Another way to put it, a friend of mine who's known me for as long as you've been practicing spirituality, Edgy, I met him in 71, and we've been best friends since. He has told me yet again, he's told me this a few times. He said it yesterday over the phone. He says, Mark, I don't know how, but somehow all the things that were holding you back, all the things that were like all the self-imposed suffering and everything that was keeping you from being who you are is gone. And this is from a person who doesn't believe in spiritual practice. So I thought that was the best vindication I could possibly hear from someone who knows me better than anyone else in the world. But not that I need it, but it was nice to hear. So thank you, Edgy.
Well, You know, in this place of resting in oneself, one can read those stories about the 3 or 4 monks walking together by a stream and encountering various situations and how they each react. And you know by their reactions which one really knows theirself, which one is at rest in themselves. By, in the story, how they reacted, either with words or deed. It's you're completely at home with yourself. You feel yourself being yourself all the time. And it's the most important thing in the world to you because it's really the only thing you're aware of. Being yourself. And now reading the Ashtavakra Gita makes so complete sense. Where the guy says, this and this is going on, this and this is going on. And it does not matter because I know myself. I know who I am. I know what I am. The Ashtavakra Gita is such a guide for those who have already become themselves, because it speaks for this person who has become him or herself. And it tells what it's like to be oneself. It really doesn't help you find yourself, but it's like a checking to know whether you've gotten there or not. It doesn't matter because I know myself, which is the self of all, in the sense that the same self resides in each person underneath all their thinking, all their striving, all their needing and wanting. Your existence rawly, no longer painted over by distractions of theory or causes or desires. When you are the self, you just eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired, and every moment is magical. A life without struggling to understand or to achieve anything. It becomes a life like a life, playing with cats and dogs all day long. And that's all you have to do. Every moment becomes enjoyable. And you feel so absolutely pure because there are not a lot of thoughts or desires that wander into your attention that distract you from remaining in yourself. Yourself becomes everything. And yet, you really can't describe what the self is. You can only be yourself. And if someone asks you, how can I find myself? You can spend days talking about various things you can do. But I think the first most important command is shut the fuck up. Just relax and feel yourself underneath all of your mind ideas. Frank, you seem to be struggling today. No?
No. I was just writing you a little note.
What?
I was just about to write you a little note before I have to take off. That's all.
Oh.
Quite the opposite of struggling.
Okay.
Quite the opposite. As I was going to write in my note, you have an uncanny ability to take what's in my heart and put it in words that come out of your mouth.
So that's where it's coming from.
Well, somewhere, some orifice. I will not go beyond that. Yes, thank you, Ed, as always.
Happy trails to you today.
Thank you, my friend.
Till we meet again.
Indeed. Bye all.
Bye-bye. Vasily, any questions?
No questions. I'm completely peaceful today. As, during the last 3 satsangs, I'm falling in and out of sleep and I feel really peaceful. There are no thoughts there. But I was thinking about the nature of thoughts, and for the last few years I've been I'm trying to throw out of my system all my fears, because all thoughts come from mainly from fear. I mean, you need some thoughts to function, but all the notions and all the unnecessary garbage come from deep-rooted fears, which I'm trying to throw out of my system every day. So, thank you.
Eddie?
Oh shit. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I was just trying to stay still. So it's pretty much what you were saying earlier about the best advice is just shutting the fuck up and just staying, and that's being still, I guess. So that's what I was trying to do the whole time. Just rest in stillness.
Now, I watch everybody here doing satsang. Their movements, the expression on their faces. And I've seen you change during the last month. I don't know whether it's just your facial hair or whether it reflects something deeper going on in you.
Like a good change or a bad change?
Good change.
Oh, alrighty then.
Cassie, how are you?
feel like I've got this monster inside of me that's trying to take over.
You've been feeling that for some time now.
Yeah, well, it's getting stronger. It's getting stronger. It's getting more pointed, I guess. It's more just like I'm not seeing it so much outside, but more inside me. Yeah.
Is it a monster within, or is it a saint within?
I don't know.
Angel, how are you?
Feeling pretty peaceful today. I'm aware that I'm becoming more aware of where I get tripped up and my ego comes in and my mind takes over is with and my ego takes over and wants to control situations is with family members, specifically kids, my kids, that I have this judgment of how things should be in their lives, and this and what I'm realizing is how much that can keep me in my mind and keep me in my mind and my judgments of how things should be or what should be different or what they should be doing different. And I guess my question for you is, what do I do with that? How do I deal with that?
Be more specific.
Let me close my door. Without feeling like I'm, well, one of my daughters, I feel like she drinks more than she should, and it causes a lot of issues in her relationships and her life. And so I see her struggling with it. And so, and now as we're talking about it, I feel like this is taking us out of this space of self that we're in, and I'm bringing us to this ego space, which isn't really where I want to go with it, because I feel like I'm taking us into the mundane, into the family and this, but that was what was up for me a little bit, because it almost feels phony if I'm there and I've got these feelings, and this isn't where I rest most of the time. Most of the time I'm good. It's just this is something that can trigger me. And I feel like I'm taking us down this ego path to the mind, which is really not where I want to go. But that's kind of what's up for me a little bit right now.
And you wanted to know what you can do about it.
Yes, to deal.
Seems
Yes.
like you're doing right now by recognizing it.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to recognize it happening when it's happening allows you to just stop and not do it anymore.
Mm.
Ian pointed that out to me. He was talking about, what comedian was it that played a psychiatrist?
Bob Newhart.
Tell us about it.
Bob Newhart has a sketch which has lasted for years and years and years. Now he's playing a psychiatrist, and this woman comes to see him. And she sits down and she starts telling him all of the things about her sons and daughters and her life and her pain and her suffering and all of the other things. And he says, "Stop it!" And that's it.
Stop it.
Just stop it.
Stop it.
You recognize the problem, and it's taking you away from your own relaxation and getting into a control mode for the greater good of something or somebody, rather than to give her the space to work out her own growth and change. You got enough problems yourself. You don't need to add your daughters to yours. Just love her. Let her feel your love all the time.
What you just
Of
said is
course.
huge.
What?
I said, sorry, what you just said was huge. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's all right. But then again, you could always say to her, just stop it. David.
I'm filled up and brimmed up with, I think, two feelings or qualities, which is a tremendous gratitude for this and for you and what you're, this process that's happening here, which I'm tremendously thankful and I'm overwhelmed. I never thought I would be sitting with a Gyani. I didn't imagine that, like live, like you're here and you care about people and you want them to have awakening and know themselves. It's just,
Yes. I want everyone to feel the freedom of just being themselves without contortion into become something better, something more wise or more loving or all of that, but just to be one's own self, needing to not change at all. And just dispensing with joy and a sense of freedom of being yourself. When Robert was dying on his deathbed, he just kept repeating one word over and over again. Freedom. 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 And we all know that we're imprisoned by our concepts. But the thing is, most of us don't struggle to get rid of those concepts, but to capture other people to have the same concepts we have, so that there's more harmony, a harmony of concepts. Vata. You seem to be doing very well. Your face always reflects a kind of peace and quietness. You'll get over it. That'll pass. This is my son, little Eddie. He's one of my teachers. And over there is Radha, who's also one of my teachers. And little Eddie and Radha are competing with each other to see who's going to submit to the other. For many years, Radha ran away from Eddie because Eddie was always chasing the girls. But Radha stopped running at a point and started to beat the hell out of Eddie when he was bothering her. Now it's sort of like a detente. But I wouldn't be surprised if a year from now they weren't sleeping together in the same bed. I love you all. I don't say that at the beginning of satsang like I used to because it sounded a little phony coming at the beginning and opening satsang with it. But after a satsang like today, where we met heart to heart, it's much easier for me to say that and to say it truthfully. And so you know it's the truth. Okay. Who shall I turn this over to? Who's the one that least wants to be in charge of the rest of the satsang? David, I'm going to pick you because you've never done it. You probably don't want to do it, and you don't know what to do anyway. So you're as good as any to give this task to. Take care, everybody. I love you.